Today, we're going to talk about something huge. We're talking about one of the biggest, most ambitious economic reforms in modern history, a complete redesign of the tax system for over 1 billion people. It's an incredible story about chaos, complexity, and a search for something much, much simpler.
I mean, think about that for a second. It sounds completely ridiculous, right? Paying a tax not just on the thing you're buying, but on the taxes that have already been piled on top of it. Well, what if I told you that for decades, that was just normal for an entire country?
Yep, this wasn't just some weird little loophole. It was built into the very fabric of the economy. And this isn't just a story about numbers and spreadsheets. It's about unraveling a massive nationwide problem that affected absolutely everyone. So let's dive in and see how this crazy system actually worked.
Okay, so first things first, we got to get one basic concept down, the indirect tax. It's simple, really. You know when you buy a new phone, the store adds the tax to your bill. They collect it, but then they pass it on to the government. So who's really paying? You are. It's baked into the final price. This idea is the foundation for, well, everything else we're about to talk about.
So before 2017, the tax system in India wasn't just complicated. It was a maze, a complete jungle of different taxes, different rules, and different authorities that made doing business an absolute nightmare.
And here's why it was such a mess. You basically had two different governments taxing you at the same time. The central government in Delhi had its own list of taxes, but then every single state had its own separate list. Just imagine trying to ship something across the country. Every time you crossed the state border, you were entering a whole new world of tax rules.
Let's do a quick fire round to see how this worked. First up, Central Excise Duty. This was a tax the government slapped on a product the second it was made in a factory. It hadn't even been sold yet, and it was already being taxed.
Then there was the service tax. If you used your phone, went to a restaurant, paid a consultant, bam! Another separate tax, also going to the central government.
All right, now let's jump to the state level. When that product was finally sold in a store, the state government would add its own tax, called a value-added tax, or VAT. And of course, the VAT rate in one state could be totally different from the state next door.
Now this one is just wild. On top of everything else, some cities and states had something called an entry tax, or Octroi. This was literally a tax you had to pay just for the privilege of a truck driving your goods into their territory. It created these massive, endless lines of trucks at state borders, just waiting to pay a tax to get in.
So all these taxes flying around created a ton of problems. But there was one fundamental flaw, one core issue that stood above all the rest. It was the thing that made everything more expensive for every single person in the country.
And that core problem has a name, the cascading effect. If you can understand this one concept, you'll understand exactly why India's entire tax system had to be torn down and rebuilt from scratch.
The cascading effect is just a fancy name for that absurd idea we started with, tax on tax. It's a chain reaction. It's when a new tax gets calculated on a price that already has an old tax baked into it. It's a snowball effect that just makes the final price get bigger and bigger at every single step.
Okay, let's walk through this with a super simple example. Say a manufacturer makes a widget for a base price of 100 rupees. The factory pays that first tax, the excise duty. Let's say it's 10 rupees, so the price is now 110. Now they sell it to a wholesaler, and here's the crazy part. The wholesaler has to pay their tax, the state VAT, but they pay it on the full 110 rupees. They are literally paying a tax on the first tax. Then the retailer does the same thing on an even higher price. By the time it gets to you, the customer, the price has been artificially bloated by this tax on tax on tax effect.
So this cascading effect, plus the sheer number of taxes, created a system that was just breaking. It was slowing down the economy, it was confusing for everybody, and it was holding back growth. Change wasn't just a good idea, it was absolutely essential.
So let's just recap the damage this system was doing. You had the tax on tax cascade making things more expensive. You had those entry taxes acting like actual borders between states, stopping India from being one big unified market. For business owners, just trying to follow all the different rules was a full-time job. And all that complexity, well, it made it a whole lot easier for some people to just avoid paying taxes altogether.
So out of all this chaos, a new idea began to take hold. A really radical, simple idea. The only way to fix the tax maze was to, well, get rid of the maze completely and build something new.
And the entire reform was driven by this one powerful mantra: one nation, one tax. The goal was to sweep away all those dozens of different central and state taxes and replace them all with a single, unified system for the whole country.
And that solution was the Goods and Services Tax, or GST. It officially launched on July 1st, 2017. It was designed from the ground up to be one single comprehensive tax that would apply to pretty much everything, everywhere, all across the nation.
And look at this. This slide really tells the whole story, doesn't it? On the left, you've got that long, complicated list of all the taxes we've been talking about, and on the right, you have what replaced all of them. One thing, GST. You can just see the massive scale of the simplification right there.
And the beauty of GST is that it was a direct answer to all those old problems. The single tax got rid of the confusion, and that tax-on-tax cascade, GST killed it. It introduced a system where businesses get credit for the taxes already paid in the chain. It finally broke that inflationary cycle. By getting rid of the entry taxes, trucks could finally move freely, creating a true national market. And it was all built on a unified digital platform, which made compliance way easier.
So, if you take just one thing away from all of this, let it be this. India took on the monumental task of replacing a tangled, fragmented web of old taxes with one unified system. The whole point was to make life simpler for businesses, to kill the tax-on-tax problem, and to finally stitch the country together into a single, seamless economic market.
GST was a massive step, a truly historic reform. But, progress never stops, right? An economy is always evolving. It just makes you wonder, what's the next great economic puzzle that's just waiting to be solved?